Halfway through the record, we begin side C with the most well-known song of the Blue Moose album, or at least the only well-known one of it. Sorry seems to be the hardest word. And well, without any shadow of doubt, this is definitely a heartbreaker and tearjerker of a song. A very piano-centric and orchestral ballad. This deals with the coping and heartache after a very recent breakup. In it, Elton asks what he can do to make things up, to make someone care and love him again, to be heard again. As he puts it, it's a sad, sad situation and absurd. And anyone who's dealt with these kind of breakups and fallouts and split ups would no doubt relate to a song like this. And in fact, in 2004, Elton was involved in a new duet version of the song with the late great Ray Charles. And believe it or not, that was apparently one of, if not the very last recording that Ray Charles was ever involved in. And with that in mind, that kind of adds to the overall tragedy of a song like this. It's simple, it's minimal, but it's just bitter, it's sorrowful. If it doesn't make you tear out your eyes, I don't know what else will. I know there have been a lot of great Elton John songs that would no doubt make people jerk some tears, but something like this is definitely up there. Next is Out of the Blue, not to be confused with the Electric Orchestra album Out of the Blue, which came out a year after this album. Coincidental maybe. But anyways, this is another instrumental piece, and it is 6.25 minutes of proactive and almost dramatic rockiness. It is unlike anything I've ever heard from Elton John or Buddy Torpin. Here they seem to stretch their muscles quite a bit when it comes to the more musical aspect of their composition more than the lyrical. If you were to listen to this first time without knowing any idea who it was by, chances are you'd swear it was something out of Genesis or Mike Oldfield. It definitely has its extended sections, and it does sound like one big improvised jam session, with the pianos, guitars, the vibraphone, and the drums all battling each other, or together, for dominance over the song itself. And, like I said, is unlike any Elton John song I've heard so far, much like Go It Alone, for instance, from the Leather Jackets album. And the way it begins and ends, it fittingly comes out of the blue and returns back into it. The next song, Between 17 and 20, does have vocals back again, with Elton kind of recollecting about a time that he was apparently 20 and he was with a 17-year-old person. Now, at first this may sound a bit squeaky to some, but considering the whole half-age plus 7 rule, a 20-year-old dating a 17-year-old isn't too bad. It may still seem a bit off to some, maybe a bit underage depending on whatever country and age of consent you live in, but generally it's not too offish. But anyways, Elton goes on to describe himself as being a general colour based on a certain emotion, like red when he's mad, green when he's jealous, and yellow was when he's sad. Well, clearly he's got his colours and emotions mixed up. You're green when you're disgusted, and you're blue when you're sad. Haven't you watched Pixar's Inside Out? Well, anyways, the music itself does have a bit of a calypso, almost reggae vibe to it, with the conga drums, the the organs, and the Blue Oyster Cult-esque guitars. All in all, it's another very bright and very simple Elton John song that also delves into the more exotic natures that a lot of his songs would may delve into from time to time. If you're a fan of those kind of music with that kind of style, I'd say give this particular song a chance. Even if the lyrics themselves may not be all that deep or all that big interpretive, it's still a very fun and happy song regardless. The Wide-Eyed and Laughing does continue this sense of exotic experimentation. A semi-psychedelic piece with the sitar taking center stage, not unlike Love You Too by the Beatles from their Revolver album, plus the synth from of James Newton Howard, adding a layer of otherworldliness to the already harmonic song. The lyrics are somewhat pretty vague and, dare even say, abstract, though the wide-eyed and laughing people of the song may represent our inner demons or the voices in our heads, how they seem to be one step ahead of the wind. They pass like seasons and erase passions to sin. And when Elton asks, "Are we still in control of of our boat, or do we cling to each other if they sink?" That might be referring to how whether or not we even have control over our own lives and our fates, as well as how whether or not we really depend on each other, or we still have some sense of our own individual independence. But again, much like Out of the Blue, it is unlike any other Elton John song I have listened to so far. It is definitely is another example of him trying to tackle different musical cultures or cultural music, and it's honestly not a bad thing. It's always good to step out of the comfort zone and kind of tackle a different style for at least one song or two. I would have loved Elton John to do more sitar songs sometime down the road, and maybe he has in many of the other songs and albums he's done. I don't know. We'll see. Side C's final song is called, well, Someone's Final Song. This is another sad piano ballad with some backing synth, of course, and in it, Elton recalls a man who apparently died when his house was empty and the maids have all gone. But not before he jots down one last song with pen and paper. And the song itself kind of goes on to imply that he may have committed suicide by apparently drinking himself sober after hours and hours. Admitting that suicide is wrong, but expressing how he can't stand living life this way, whatever or whichever this way is, who knows. Now that he's been gathering dust like dying flowers, or at least his corpses. Now the song isn't exactly encouraging or promoting suicide. You don't need to worry about that. But rather it's showing how tragic and sad the topic of suicide can be and is. This could be seen as a follow-up to the Chameleon song, or Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word, where the heartache from the breakup seemed to be too much for the person that this is the subject of, that he can't carry on life suffering such heartbreak that he decides to just off himself and spare himself the pain and agony. It's not saying suicide is the right solution, it's just showing that sometimes it's inevitable. Sometimes these dark thoughts come to our heads and they stick with us for a long time, if not forever, until we spare ourselves the misery. So is it some way a bittersweet way to go out on the penultimate side of the album? So let's just hope the last side will lift our spirits up a bit.